So hello everyone and welcome to the Ascension Energy Forecast on Mondays. I'm Trudy. I often don't say that actually, thinking about it, but I'm Trudy and my page is White Star Cell Guidance. And every Monday I come live to share what energies I've been sensing that week regarding our soul vision and the Ascension energies. So a lot of my work tends to be a little bit more for what is coming up as opposed to what's been. And I feel that on these Mondays, sharing this allows other people to say, well, that's what that meant, or this is how I connect to that. And I've noticed it, but didn't realize it. So it's kind of like bringing that awareness and that consciousness into your awareness so that you can use it, so that you can create your own great vision of what you're here to do. So I'm just going to say hello to everybody on Zoom that's joining me on Zoom. So hello, thank you, Marta, saying hello there. And anybody on YouTube that's watching live, then please introduce yourselves and say hello in the comments. I've got those up as well. So I'll be live for about 30 minutes. And at the end of that, I have a spiritual think tank where the people on Zoom stay with me so they don't leave, so that we can have a chat in more details to see how these things are showing up for them. So if you don't know me, I've been talking for the last maybe 6 weeks now about the ascension energies, but it's actually been quite focused on our creativity. And I think this is because we're starting to shift more into how our creative energies are now becoming the way to manifest. And it's not so much the law of attraction anymore, but the law of creation that's going to be more prominent. So over the last few weeks, we've been getting these sort of downloads about clues on how we can become more aligned with our creativity in a world where there's no form, and we get to choose on how to build our own form. So grab yourself a cup of tea and a notepad and just listen, receive the transmission of the energies I'm sending, or just make some notes that jump out at you. But it's not about understanding everything I say, because you can always do the replay for that. You can always get more information by replaying it anyway. And the other episodes are all available as well. So you've got plenty of time to go back and see all the different episodes. So if you're all cozy and comfy, then I'll just introduce today's lesson, which was a really weird one, which they've all been pretty weird in fairness, because when you're working with energies from the ascension energies, which are the new form that's coming in, there's no template or book to explain it because it's new. We're walking in new territory. And that's what each of these Mondays is doing, is giving you clues how to walk this new territory. And I feel that we all have bits that we need to share with each other because we're all part of the puzzle, which is why we have the think tank afterwards, so we start sharing a bit more about that. But if we all are here doing some great vision work, which is involving bringing new energies in, helping the earth upgrade, improving the grids and the energetic structures for this new fifth dimensional living, then some of us are conscious of it and some of us are not, which is why I feel that some of the people that I'm looking for then are these sleeping shamans, is what I was calling them. But they are sleeping quantum humans, I suppose, would be the modern day version of them. They are people who haven't necessarily been into spirituality so far and are just starting to waken up to it. And what I've been trying to do is to give you the cutting edge, leading edge, I should say, aspect of it, rather than going through all of the old stuff and catching up. You can kind of skip that and come in straight to this point and start focusing on how can you use the energies I'm sharing every week in your own life. And the whole point that we're doing is that by sitting here with me now, you're activating these memories, these templates and energetic templates in your body to slowly wake you up to the concepts that you are able to do these things for yourself, that you are here to create a new earth, that you are a leader, a pioneer, a visionary. And you're probably already doing this work subconsciously and don't even realize it. So the soul lesson this week is quite interesting. So it came not from a card or a book, it came from a toy, from a sort of like a wash tag on a toy, which I thought was quite interesting, because sometimes when the information is really quite new, they come from really odd places. So I was tuning into it over the last few days, and the soul lesson is keep this information for future use. And I kind of felt that that was ironic in a way, because we often assume that as leaders of a new paradigm that the downloads or the insights that we're getting don't make sense, and we put them away. We might not even journal them, we might not even think about them, we just ignore them. And I was often told the story of the light bulb, that not just one person, well, we know not just one person was working on it, but not just one person got the download for the light bulb. It was probably scattered to lots of different people. But it was only those that listened, and only those that obeyed the calling, and only those that then took action that were then remembered as the people who invented the light bulb. And I think that's kind of important because, you know, we're used to the light bulb now. It's sort of every day. It's like we probably would think the world had gone back to the caveman days without it. And yet, you know, for much of our time and existence as humanity, we didn't have the light bulb. So you can see how something that must have been quite unusual at the time, of this electricity, this invisible aspect coming into people's homes and then creating this extra world of nighttime activities they couldn't do because there was no light involved before. You can see how that, which was so radical and so new back then, and only a few people were doing it and a few people didn't understand what it was going to be used for, how it now becomes a main part of our society. And that's what we're talking about on every Monday, is that we each have those kind of insights inside us right now. It's not always going to be tangible, but it could be a new wisdom and it could be new awarenesses, but it's going to be something that we need, a new way of thinking, a new way of being that we need in order to move into the next phase of humanity. So keep this information for future use. I thought was quite funny in a soul lesson, because it's saying to you, pay to everything you're paying attention to, don't throw it out when you don't understand it. But it's also saying that everything you're doing now that might seem weird or strange will become normal in the future. So there's two sides to this reading. So hopefully that kind of makes sense for you. And the challenge for this, of course, is that not all of us are able to read these subtle futuristic images in our dream time and the downloads. It's all a little bit out of this world because we're ahead of our time. And the strength that we have is that the universe wants you to know that it really does want you to succeed. So if you've missed it, it doesn't matter. You know, what's meant for you will always come back for you. And that there's been a lot of timeline shifting there, which is there to help us. And part of what I've been doing over the last week is learning how to use the timelines shifting and timeline snakes and ladders that I was talking about last week to allow us to understand these futuristic concepts or strange out of this world concepts, so that we can start integrating them and making them our everyday, like the light bulb. So Marta's saying, yes, I like this, that all will make sense in the end. That's what we're saying, basically. It'll make sense in the end, but only if you keep this information for future use, because it doesn't always come up immediately. So I feel that, you know, when I'm talking about these shamans that need to awaken, I do feel that not everyone is here to be a healer at this time, even though I know there's a lot of sensitives that have amazing energy skills. It's not about channeling all of that into becoming a healer, not to think that we're all going to be Reiki healers or progression experts or helping people undo beliefs, not in a job quite like that. But it's more about us as quantum humans merging the 5D energetic skills with 3D jobs. And that kind of fits me a bit, because my background's computing, and then I've got the spirituality, and I feel the two are coming together into some new form. And my membership for me is kind of my computer project that I'm building and putting all my knowledge into. So the two are working together as a knowledge base to help others have easier access to this information, just like I did when I was a computer programmer, offering access to people's data, whether it was banking or insurance. This time it's just their spiritual insights and their dream time and their journey. So just because you might not have done anything with your psychic abilities up till now, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we had a session about how everybody's energies were shifting. And it wasn't just about clairvoyancy or clairaudience, but there was a whole bunch of new information coming through too. And I think that's part of this shifting into this quantum human, is this new awareness of what we are capable of as a human, without computing, without artificial intelligence, but just what we're able to do. And we need that awareness of ourselves to balance what is happening in the world as technology is advancing. So the important things to realize is that everything is changing. Everything is changing from even our spiritual beliefs, like what we used to believe about certain spiritual law of attraction, are changing. Everything like what crystals used to represent are changing. How we used to deal with past lives is changing. Everything's changing. So it's really important that we've got that strength and conviction in our own beliefs of ourselves, that we can then manage that and allow us to allow ourselves the permission to interpret things a little bit differently than what the past might have said. So that's kind of important to realize, again, is that writing down the information and keeping it, because it will become the mainstream at some point. So dream time might have been a bit crazy for you. Maybe you've had some really odd past memories coming back up. Some people are saying that they feel like they're having psychic attacks because people from the past are coming back up. But I feel all of that is partly this wisdom coming through, trying to help us connect to it and realize the value that was there. I also noticed that as the ascension energy is rising, that the wisdom that it's trying to deliver to us is also getting more intense, hence the crazy dreams. But it's also about us learning that that language might have been what they spoke to us when we were starseeds, or it might have been a visual representation that made some sense to us at another past life that we haven't connected yet. And realizing that there's this kind of recalibration between our humanness now and the soul wisdom that's coming in order to get the translation working. So again, I've spoken about languages. You know, when you learn a language, it's easier to learn it if you're in the marketplace using it organically than it is to learn in a classroom. And it's very much like that in our spiritual language and our spiritual dreams that are coming through in all the messages. So Marta's saying, yes, interesting dreams, and happy to become more and more convicted these days. Yeah, because we had a joke about being convicted, being the conviction of your beliefs as opposed to being convicted, but it's I get it hard to get that into a sentence. So many of us may already be even using this wisdom. Yeah, you might not understand what's going on in your brain. You might not understand your dreams. Just wake up thinking, that's a bit weird. I don't quite feel like I'm on this planet. I feel like I've been off planet for a bit and I've just come back and I don't quite feel in my body. And if you're not a spiritual person, you know, that might leave you a bit confused. But that's all signs that you're doing kind of work in the etheric realm, helping bring some of this wisdom down to the planet. And if we want to turn that into 3D abundance, then we have to become more aware of it, which is why we're saying value your creative process. This is all part of what you're here to do, and therefore it's going to be part of your value too. So if you feel like you've had weird dreams, then just consider that you might be already anchoring some of this information onto the planet now. Now, the second part is that with the new 5D consciousness, it's bringing new ways of doing things. So I think, again, a couple of weeks ago, we spoke about the new energy sensing skills that were coming in. So some of these skills are time bending, reforging of energies, negative energies, retrocognizance, harmonization, med beds to help that soul human integration of heaven on earth, and even new life force energies that were a combination of the earth and the cosmos coming together to create a new Kundalini energy for the body. Even the chakra system started moving. So there's quite a lot of shifts and turns in this area at the moment. Some of the wisdom is even coming from Atlantis. A lot of the readings that I've been doing have a lot of information about the fall of civilizations and relating back to Atlantis as having some of the wisdom that we need to connect to the 5D. And that they know how to make this heaven on earth integration, where we're this quantum human walking with this connection to our spiritual quantum intelligence all the time. And the two are blending, like I said, together into this 3D work and the 3D world that we live in. And some of this information has been coming through the halls of Amenti, which is kind of like an Akashic Records, but on a grander scale. And the problem is, you know, we've spoken about this at the end of last year, that we may have fear of the fall of Atlantis happening again. As we're noticing the fall of society now, we sense into the fact that this happened before and it didn't go well, when in reality, we've got to look at it as that was our practice run, so we could learn what would happen if it did go wrong, so that this time it would go right. And the probability is it's going to go right this time. So don't let that stop you stepping into your power right now, or to receive the wisdom. And, you know, don't block the wisdom because you're fearful of what it's going to mean. You are not the same person as you were back then. You've got much more awareness and support so that you can use this information properly this time around. Not that you didn't last time, often it was manipulation, but you're going to be more discerning this time then. There's also a lot more information coming through on your soul vision and value. And that's where I kind of get this feeling as we're ahead of our time. You know, a lot of us who are awakening now, who are meant to be here, have been completely unaware of our abilities on this level. And yet we are here because we are needed. It's so important that we step up and take our place. Oh, just got a hello from Maud. Hello, nice to see you on YouTube. So the awareness of our soul vision is part of that wisdom that's coming in, remember? So we're working on the soul lesson of make sure that you keep this information for future use. So again, some of your soul vision might not make sense if you're not used to these sort of spiritual light language, template, code type communications, but they're still coming in and you're still receiving them. And if we can get to a point where we can value that spiritual wisdom and knowledge, just like the learning we do at school, and take away the stigma of that, then again, it becomes much easier for us to utilize in our lives. So again, we have new spiritual practices, new ways to learn. So like the karmic loop kind of seems to have come to an end in the way it used to work, and we can now learn our lessons in a different way if we choose. It's that closing of the era, end of the era, closing of that old book, moving into a new timeline completely, which allows us to start creating different methodologies for learning the lessons we need to learn. Now, it's obviously going to be dependent on each person and our spiritual vibration that we're at, but it's possible now that we could decide to learn maybe our karmic loops in a different way, and the soul lessons that we're looping around in a different way, and not have to keep going back and suffering the pain of it. So the thing is, some of these can be really easy and we can really miss them because they're subtle, not all big bangs. They can be quite sort of tiny little dreams or ideas or thoughts that are coming through our minds that we can't always relate to. So it's important to tune in and listen, which is what we've been talking about for the last few weeks. So Maud has a question. Yes, type in a question and I'll read it out. So the next thing to be aware of is that everything you're doing today is creating your future. But that also goes to everything you're receiving. So if you're receiving information in your dream time, and if you're not really consciously aware of it, it doesn't matter. It's already changing your body. For all the people on the planet that are working on the earth grids, that are upgrading the energies of the planet, you are being impacted by that. You can choose whether you use it or not, but it's going to be changing everything around you so you can tune into it too. So don't ignore them. Don't think that just because you're ignoring them, you're not receiving them. So again, write them down, make sure you've got some sort of record of it, because it will unfold or blossom or grow just like a seed at some time in the future that'll make more sense to you. So your wisdom, your soul wisdom is unique to you. It's what you're here to specialize in. However we're getting it, whether it's Atlantis, new awareness, new energy sensing skills, new wisdom, all of this somehow makes up the package of you and your unique frequency. And our soul vision is all about getting to know that, understanding it, so that we can then use it to birth a 3D project into the world, basically. So how does that feel? To know that all of this wisdom's coming through, and that it might be coming in a form that doesn't completely fit the norm that we expect knowledge and wisdom to come through in. What I'm saying when we're talking about this is that basically your life is your ascension school. Whether you're asleep or awake, whether you're conscious or unconscious, the ascension is happening around you, through you, and it is your life, is your school. Let me just see what's coming through there. It's disappeared. Yeah, feeling great to put the pieces together this month's lessons and workshop, plus the full moon. Yeah, we had quite a lot of pieces to put together this month. I sometimes plan my membership meetings to be small, and then these big, huge energies come in and I'm never sure how to handle them properly, but like, you know, how to fit them all into such a limited amount of time. But this kind of goes back to what we'll talk about in a minute. I don't want to be out of the subject. I just wanted to ask if you 5D, do I do 5D readings? Is that what you're saying? If you 5D reading? I think I need a bit more information on that question, Maud. So if we want to move into this quantum human, what does it mean roughly? Well, it's to be authentic, soul aligned, an alchemist, a visionary, a pioneer, a co-creator. You know, that's what we're aiming for. And allow that our life is trying to show us all of this, that everything's happening around us, and we're trying to tune into it. And what we're going to try and do with all of that information as the alchemist is we're going to cook it all together so we can move out of the struggling to be successful and start moving more into aligning your vibration with the life you want. So that would be the aim, yeah? And the last few weeks, some of the readings that I've been getting, you know, are quite simple, like obedience to your soul, conviction of your beliefs, contemplation. They all seem quite simple concepts, very subtle, but they were unlocking parts of you that knew how to do this. So do go back and watch the replays so that you can get those energetic shifts going on for you. So the question is, if we go to the future now, imagine, I don't know, maybe 10 years from now, and you look back on this whole period of what's just been happening over the last few years, and just tune into that and think, how would you look back at this time right now? Like if you're telling somebody about, oh, 10 years ago, there was this pandemic, this is what happened. How would you describe that when you look back? Will you say something like, yeah, that was the time where I suddenly discovered my mission, my purpose, my vision, or that's when I decided my work wasn't aligned to me and I was changing direction. That was the moment that my life transformed. Would you look at it that way? Would you be able to look at some of the challenges that you had and see instead now the lessons of them sort of coming out so that you finally can understand what it was all about? Would you look and say, I wish I'd listened to that red flag. I wish I hadn't done that. Or would you say, I wish I'd acted on this or acted on that decision or this idea. I wish I'd done something more with it. Do you wish you spoke to that person or that you were attracted to, or maybe you have a business proposal and you're too shy to show it to the person that you want to work with? You know, what would you be feeling now when you look back 10 years back to this point, and what would you feel of this life right now? So yeah, on Zoom, I've got, yes, a time of great change, awareness and transformation. Because what we want to do is we want to know that if in 10 years' time, will you look back with guilt, shame and regret at this time? Or will you be able to celebrate it for what it was? Maybe you took charge of your life. Maybe you didn't act on that idea that you were meant to, but at least you took that small step to find out why, what was holding you back from taking action on that idea, why you weren't able to embrace change and at least work out those mindset gremlins that were holding you back so you could start opening up the pathway to the things you do want. You know, it's not always about, yes, I had it sorted, I had it fixed. We want to be able to say, I changed. I was better today than I was yesterday. 10 years later, that's 10 years worth of little baby steps that eventually make the change you want. Maybe you even look back and say, wow, I was really worried at that time about this, this, and this, which didn't come to fruition. Or maybe you didn't see how it was going to work out, and then suddenly it all worked out. And that's kind of like when we start lacking trust in ourselves or the divine plan, and we feel a little wobbly, but we know that the words that we speak obviously are creating our life. So if we're worried, we're going to create more worry. And if you didn't, like, you might have thought you've got it all figured out right now, and then 10 years later you look back and you say, well, actually, I didn't have it all figured out. I didn't know about X, Y, and Z. If I'd known that, I would have made different decisions. So that's okay too, you know, because that's what we learn as we move forward, isn't it? Isn't this what we call hindsight, the benefit of hindsight? But this is why I want you now to start thinking about a new spiritual technique, because do we have to learn from hindsight? Do we need hindsight? Do we have to wait 10 years to learn those lessons and then look back and say, oh, now with hindsight, I know what I would have done? Does that feel right with you? Sense into that, into your body. Like, does that feel the right way for us to be living life? Or Do you think there's another way now that's being birthed in this new paradigm of ascension, and that hindsight approach is, again, part of the old paradigm, and that we have a better way now of doing this instead? So if our soul lesson was save this information for a future date, we said the challenge was that they were going to be too subtle for us to understand. And we said that the strength that we have is time is not linear. And this is where the kind of work that we do is about jumping around timelines and exploring different timelines can really help the questions that we've just asked. So this is our strength. So we can be afraid sometimes to stop what we're doing and get off the hamster wheel because we don't know what the alternative is. We can sometimes say, oh, if I stop what I'm doing now or take a career break or change jobs at this point, I'm going to lose something else instead, or I won't catch up, or it'll look bad in some way. And it's kind of interesting because when I had my company and we sold it, everybody expected me to go straight back in and do another company. And instead, because I had ME and I was exhausted and my soul was broken, I stopped and decided I was going to take time out and then work when I was older, which is completely the wrong way. That's an example of a time bending kind of technique. You decide not to follow the norm and to work until you're 50 or 60 and then retire. You actually retire while you're younger, work, have fun, explore, learn more about yourself, and then go back into work afterwards. So these are just different options that don't fit the narrative of the current timeline processes that we use. And it's the same with the hamster wheel. Who says that it's not okay to get off the hamster wheel and you're not going to fall behind, that you actually will still end up where you're meant to end up, but you'll have a better time doing it? How many of us are afraid to let go of our lives because we're on some sort of plan of must be here by this age, here by that age, doing this by this age, doing that by that age? And without it, we feel like our lives are chaos. When sometimes the more fun approach is a much more zigzag, jumping careers, moving around, trying out different things, because the more we know ourselves and the more we know who we are and what our mess is, the better it is for us to define our life and what our vision is. So sometimes life isn't linear, and just like time isn't linear. So if time isn't linear, then there are futures, past lives, parallel lives where you have all the answers. There's a version of you having all the answers to the questions that you're probably thinking about right now. And that's why time not being linear is the strength right now. So Maud, sorry, yes, you wanted to know if I do 5D readings. Again, it depends on what you want, but yes, I do one-to-one soul journeys where I take people into their future and look at what energies they need in their life and what their soul vision is. And on a global level, I work with two other ladies, Ava and Alicia, who we do the kind of the grid work and planetary work for the planet to help anchor in the 5D energies there. So we do read it on a global level as well, if that answers your question. So thank you for being patient there. So it is coming up to the end now. And what I want to suggest to you all is to create a diary. And I want you just to sort of save the information today for the future. That's what we're playing with. I want you to describe your vibration, how aligned you are with your soul vision that you're aiming for every day. Document your thoughts, your desire, your action, your words, and how much in your body you are. And then at the end of the week, describe how your week went, and then look at the two and see how they compare. So one is just monitoring your daily state, your daily vibration. And at the end of the week, you're going to document how your external world manifested from that. And then do that for a couple of weeks. And you can always come back here and add a comment on this video, or you can join my group, Higher Dimensional Living on Facebook, and you can sort of share as you go there. But just start noticing how the two align or don't align. And then consider, would there be questions that you could have answered in another lifetime? Like I said, traveling those timelines and finding different timelines to move into, to get knowledge from, to bring wisdom back from, and allow that to help you make decisions now. So you don't have to wait 10 years to discover if that decision was going to work or not, or what regrets you might have. We can do it all now in the present because time is not linear and there is only now. So I hope that makes sense to you all. Marta says, love this, traveling timelines. I agree with this. And I think sometimes people fear that they don't want to see their future, but in reality, if you don't want to see your future, then that makes it even harder to manifest the life you want, because if you're fearful of getting old, if you're fearful of what the future might hold, then that makes it harder to bring that future into your life. And some people are on the wrong life path, so the future they see might be what their mothers or fathers wanted for them, not what they want. So there's lots of things in there, which is why when I do my one-to-one soul journeys into whatever timeline, I don't decide which timeline, we just go where the soul wants to go. Then I tend to do that in a way that allows for, sometimes it's the past, sometimes it's the future, sometimes it's a parallel best life. And sometimes the answers we seek are undoing and healing as we go, so that we can get that perfect timeline reconstructed back to what it should be, so the person can then actually see what the future could hold based on what they were fearful of before. So that's quite important to understand when you do this sort of timeline movement. So if you know, I spoke last week about time being a bit like snakes and ladders. So just because you could lose it all today doesn't mean tomorrow you can't make it all back again. And it's that the more aligned you are, the more ladders you'll find to jump forward quickly. And the more, the less aligned you are, then the more likely you are to connect like that snake and go back around and try again. So really, it's in your hands to choose how you manipulate this timeline and become that time bender to move through the time frames, to bring wisdom back, to move forward more quickly, and to be in control of your life, basically. So I hope that was useful. So we had the soul lesson was the make sure that you save all the information, keep this information for future use. And the challenge was to interpret the subtle clues to the wisdom, so that we're always documenting it and keeping it written in a form that hopefully will make sense eventually, and letting you know that the universe does want you to succeed, and these timeline shifts are there, and these new time bending abilities are there to help you. You know, that's what future life, past lives, parallel lives are there for, is to help you get more information on what we're doing right now. So I'll be back next Monday talking about whatever the next ascension energy comes through for next week, then I'll share that. But for now, I just wanted to let you know that next week I've got a full moon event, and we'll be doing, the full moon's going through Sagittarius constellation. So we'll be receiving and integrating the templates and codes of the Archer archetype, which I think is quite relevant with this timeline stuff, because it's about shooting that arrow and finding where you're going in a straight line, but also kind of, which is your vision, your goals, what you're trying to achieve, your soul vision. But it's also about balancing your personality needs and your soul. So it's that your spiritual aspirations versus your human ambition, and finding the balance between that, so that you can create this very focused, light path for you to walk and reach your goals more easily. Again, bringing back that energy from the future and making it happen sooner. I also have a group coaching mentorship, and we work in there 3 times a month, and we gather up the light codes and the wisdom. Every 2 weeks we get together and we go on soul journeys to integrate them, so that we can actually then embody them and have that wisdom translated so it can make sense to us on a personal level. So this is kind of enabling more of our quantum human abilities, because whenever I'm taking a soul journey, I'm teaching people how to do this for themselves, so that they are able to interpret their own dreams, interpret their own soul journeys, read cards and divination techniques to help them understand what our English language doesn't have words to explain. And also, I do offer one-to-one multi-dimensional journeys to discover the wisdom that you're seeking, with the answers that you need right now. And I also offer practical help on how to then birth that into a 3D abundance. That's my kind of business background that I bring through there, to help people see how things can become a business for you, or can become passive income. It doesn't always have to be a business, but how some of this wisdom that's coming in for you now can become abundance, 3D abundance for you as well. So that's today's session, our episode. So I hope you enjoyed that. You're welcome, Maud. I hope that was useful. And as I say, there's replays of all of these videos that I've done so far. This is about the 6th or 7th one now, all on the line of 5D creation path to 3D abundance. And I hope to see you next Monday. So now I'm going to spend some time with those on Zoom, And I'll say thank you for all of you joining me. And yes, please put some comments in what resonates with you, what doesn't, and let me know so I can come back and answer you then if there's any questions in the comments. Thank you, guys. I'll say goodbye.